Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and here I like to explore the world of fountain pens, ink, paper, other analog writing instruments, and related things. Today it is a fountain pen day. This is the Asvine V200. It is a vac filling pen, that's why the V200. It is titanium and acrylic, and really, I think, quite the sharp looking pen with a kind of cool, but I understand a little bit polarizing aesthetic. So we're going to look at how this pen writes. We're going to look at how it's made. We're going to look at what it does. I'll show you how to fill a vac filler pen if you're not familiar. And we will do that writing test. And then I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like about this fountain pen. So let's spin that camera and get right to it. All right, when you get your Asvine, it comes in their standard box, which is this cardboard sleeve and then a protective plastic box inside. A little bit of information there. Again, this is the Asvine V200 titanium writing pen case set. And why do they call it a set? Well, I'll show you. Because when you pull that out, look what you have there. Not just the pen, but also the Asvine pen maintenance wrench, and I really appreciate that you can get these two things together. That is really going to be helpful as you clean and maintain your pen. You open that up, there you have that in a protective little baggie, probably more to protect the pen than the wrench, and you have the pen instruction manual there showing you how to use, fill, clean, all that good stuff. And then on the flip side, you have some of their other pens such as eyedroppers, converters, cartridges, and all of that good stuff. Then we get to that pen, which comes itself in a little bit of protective plastic. And here we have what I think is quite the handsome pen. Now, I've noticed in some discussion of these pens, because they have been out for months, that the design is considered to be, I don't know if polarizing sounds a little bit stronger than it probably should be, but at least there is a little bit of polarization over the design. Not everybody likes, the acrylic and titanium aesthetic. Not everybody likes what basically is a bit of a minimalist and almost industrial sort of design. Now, for myself, these are the things that I actually like about this pen. So, your mileage and taste will vary, but I think that this is a pretty cool pen, especially being a vac filler that is a demonstrator. So I like my vac fillers to be demonstrators. I like to know how much is in there. I like to know if I put, for example, a shimmering ink inside, whether or not it needs a little bit more stirring up of the material and all of that. And being a demonstrator just makes writing with those inks easier. Now let's look over the design. So at the top of the cap, the finial, you just have this very simple machined finial at the top. I think that looks good. I like the sunburst effect that you get from the machining, and I think that's cool. Titanium does well with that kind of a finish. Then you come down to the clip, and it's kind of a squared off affair. Nice and springy, not too stiff, not too loose. I like that, kind of a just right sort of clip. Of course, since it is a demonstrator, you can see that nib inside, and again, I like that. And I like the way the titanium grip comes through that demonstrator cap. And that will bring us down to the cap band, which has laser etched Asvine and V200, the model number on the back. Always appreciate that. And that very clear acrylic demonstrator barrel so that you can see everything that's going on. You can see the safety valve inside. You can see the piston inside. This, for me, is what makes demonstrators so fun. You can also see well the threads, and I'll throw up a closer image of that so you can see it clearly. And then we come to the knob that is for opening up the valve and operating the piston and piston rod. And you will see that it has two silicone rings here on it. You can see inside there that there are the flat sides for maintaining your pen, cleaning, opening that up so that you can clean that. And that's what you'll use the wrench for. The machining of the titanium looks really good. And you can kind of see that here as that flares out, how nice and sharp that's done. You can see it on those threads. And then you come down to the other end, which again is machined in a way that gives a nice sunburst effect. And while we're here, let me just show you on the wrench. This is not a pen that will use the notches. Instead, come down here to the end that is notch free and come to the first notch on the side, and that is going to be the one that is the right fit for this. And then you'll turn this counterclockwise, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, and be able to open that up and maintain it. Of course, like any vac fill pen, you're going to put that into a bottle of ink. You'll open this up and then push down And when you push down, that valve will clear the opening, and that has created a vacuum that will pull that ink right up into the barrel. Now, for those of you who like to know the cap turns, it is 1.5. 1.5 cap turns, nice and easy. The pen does post, and you will just push it on. You'll have to push it on a little bit hard. The O-rings are there. They will keep that very much in place. It will be a bit back heavy when the pen is empty, but it'll balance out a little bit better when the pen's full. Now, I will say that I think because of the length of this pen and the comfort of that grip, I think that this is a really great pen in balance unposted. It's just almost a perfect balance if you leave that unposted. Now, I mentioned the threading earlier. The threading for the cap is here on the titanium portion of the grip section. The threads you see here in the acrylic are the grip section into the barrel. You can see that there is a silicone O-ring there to keep that nice and tight. Very easy pen to disassemble, easy to clean and maintain. So don't be intimidated by that. It's really a lot more approachable than people might think just looking at it on the surface. Now, that grip section does have a really nice curve to it. It makes it very comfortable. It's not slippery, and there's enough of a flare out at the end that you don't slip down toward the nib, and there's enough flare this way. The pen's not moving around too much at all, really, in either direction. I find that just a really nicely shaped grip. Now, you've probably already noticed that this is their number 6 nib. Asvine does these very well. I've just gotten great out-of-the-box nibs from Asvine, and doesn't matter if it's the extra fine, fine, medium. I've used all of those, and they've done very, very well. So odds are you're going to get a great writing pen right out of the box with little to no tuning needed at all. And I think you can see why as you look at this close-up of the nib. All right, so that's the overall design of this pen. I'm curious, share in the comments what you think about the design. Do you find it polarizing, or is this the kind of look that you like in a vac-filling pen? All right, time to fill the pen, and I'm going to use Monteverde's Ocean Noir. This is a nice dark blue ink that I really enjoy. It has a little bit of shading and things like that, and just a nice ink. To fill this pen, you open up that valve, dip the pen just past the beginning of the grip into the ink. We press that knob and let that fill up. Now, you will notice that I did not get a complete fill on this pen, and that is not a function of the pen. In this case, it was a function of an ink bottle that just didn't have enough ink left in it. But I'm satisfied with that today. That's actually a pretty good amount of ink, even though it's only half this pen's capacity. All right, so here is the Asvine V200 titanium and acrylic pen. Here we have another Asvine and another vac filler. This is their V126, another excellent pen of theirs, but in a more classic design and offered in several colors. And I don't really think you can go wrong with either one. Another vac filler that's been around a long time. This is not the Pilot, though it does look like it. This is the Wingsung 699. And then recently reviewed the Narwhal Original Plus, another vac-filling pen. This one also a demonstrator, although it's hard to tell with that ebony purple ink in there. I really thought that was a great pen as well. You'll notice they're all fairly similar in size. This one is a little bit shorter than the Wingsung, the Asvine probably about the same. So pretty standard size, really. I think the design aesthetic of this pen makes it look just a bit bigger or bulkier than it is, but it's really pretty standard size for a vac filler pen. Now, here I have the pens unposted and end to end, and you can see that it's slightly longer than two of the pens. It's about the same as that Wingsung 699. Now, here are the pens posted and end to end, and then it definitely is the longest, seconded by the Narwhal Original Plus, which is a really long pen. I don't write with it posted either. And one thing you'll want to consider when you're posting a pen like this is that you are going to have to open up that safety valve for most writing times. So when you have that knob extended, I just think it's better to write with these pens unposted. All right, so you've heard me talk about the shutoff valve down here that is there so that when you have altitude or pressure changes, such as flying or taking a trip to the mountains or whatever, you can run lower risk of the pen leaking. To open that up for a longer writing session, say, you just twist that knob, open that valve up, and then the ink flows freely to the nib and feed. Now, I've mentioned that I really like the balance and feel of this pen, and because it is longer and comes back past where my hand is in contact with the pen here, that's all nice and smooth. Some pens will have trim or a clip or the cap or whatever and kind of drive you nuts. This, very comfortable. I really like the balance and feel of this pen, and having a metal grip also makes it a little bit more nib end weighted, especially when full, which I like on my pens. This one is a medium. It's number 6, and it is steel. And I just find, again, that they do a great job on their nibs. The medium is probably my favorite, but again, I've recently reviewed that V126. I've reviewed it in both medium and an extra fine. Really enjoyed writing with them both. I mentioned that this is Ocean Noir, and I enjoy this ink. It is a dark blue, but as you can see, it has those vibrant blue undertones. And so when you get some shading, such as in this V right here, if you can see that, the vibrancy of the blue comes out instead of the darkness. And it makes for a really neat ink to use. It's good in a stub nib too, really nice in a stub nib. Now, you might think that I'm writing down names of Tex-Mex or Mexican food. I just thought I was writing down happiness. I'm really liking the way this writes. I don't know if you can get any line variation. Let's try that and see. Oh, yeah. This has enough springiness to it. Just writing normally, I don't really sense any of that springiness, but it does when you push it. Not hard at all. You can get kind of a nice line variation. Not everybody cares about that. This is not a flex nib or anything like that, but not bad at all. Not bad at all. I forget to do this most of the time, but let's see if it does reverse writing well or not. I have no idea. Wow, you know what? That's actually not too bad in reverse either. Not bad at all. Well, you know what's coming next then. Let's try our speed test. Now, I'm going to do this quickly, and it's going to tell us whether or not the pen has a sweet spot or not, because sometimes, I accidentally turn and I'll mess that up. And it'll tell us whether or not the ink can keep up, the flow keeps up with faster writing. All right, so I'm going to do this in real time. All right, I felt myself do something right here on both lines in the same place in the page. That may have something to do with myself. I think overall it did well, and this demonstrates on the ink side of things what I was talking about. You can see some of that ink shading that goes on as well. But I think as far as the pen is concerned, it's going to keep up just fine. All right, so pros and cons, what do I think overall about the pen? First, the style of the pen, the aesthetic of the pen, whether or not you like that, totally a personal thing. I like it. And one of the things that I like about it is that, again, Asvine has done an excellent job on the machining of the metal, the working of the acrylic, and the bringing them together. It's really just a really well done pen. And I don't know exactly how you would beat it at this price point. It's not a completely inexpensive pen. It's kind of in that range of $40 to $50 pens where most people are going to go, I don't know, that's an awful lot for a pen, but where compared to a lot of other fountain pens, it's also a really great value. Now, you might have a question of why titanium in this pen? And I say you might have that question. In some ways, I almost have that question. But I think I know what the answer is, at least for me. I don't know about the designers, but I know at least for me. And that is this. The mix of metal and acrylic means that your weakest point is with your weakest material. So it's not a stronger pen. Usually when we think of titanium, we don't just think of lightness, we think of really strong material. Well, this is going to be really strong in places, but it's still ultimately an acrylic pen with titanium bits. So it's not going to be any stronger than the acrylic barrel or demonstrator cap. So you wouldn't do it for strength. I think the answer is actually in its lightness. I think that one of the features of this particular pen is this really great balance. And that balance comes not only from the use of titanium, but where they've used titanium. It just makes it for a really nice balanced pen. It has a nice balance to it, even just when it's capped. So, of course, when you remove the cap and then you start to write with it, again, a little bit more weighted toward that nib in a good way, especially if you have a pretty good ink fill. But that makes the writing with this pen that much better. So I think that it really comes down to you have a larger pen. In fact, pens tend to be, by nature, a little bit larger. But you have one that is not like carrying a piece of concrete in your pocket. Some pens get a little bit weighty. Now, most of the pens that I showed you in the size comparison have this advantage too because they're almost entirely acrylic, and that's one of the reasons. But if you are more into a pen with some brushed metal bits, and some people are, this gets you what you want without any added weight. And I like that. I think that's actually where that metal comes in and makes it a pen that you might want to consider. No, it doesn't make it stronger. So if you're thinking, well, what's the point of titanium there? Well, there's not one. But in terms of lightness, it's fantastic, and it does the job well. So I think it actually then makes sense. And being able to get a vac filler at this price is already a good thing. Being able to get it with a titanium knob grip and clip, well, all the better. So it really comes out to be a really great balance. Do I have any negatives? Well, I guess on the posting, if it's even meant to post, I assume it must be, or you wouldn't have bothered with those silicone O-rings. They kind of protect the acrylic as they go over that titanium knob. It works. You can do it. It's not the most convenient capping process, and those silicone O-rings can roll off. Okay, so that's a little bit of a negative. That's not a big deal because I'm not going to write with the pen posted. I like it too much unposted. So it could be a negative, definitely, but it's one that I'm going to avoid in my regular use of the pen. So for me, it's not as big a deal. For you, it might be. And that's really the only negative I have for this pen. The positives are, I think, personally, I like the look. I've said that. Really like the feel of the grip. I think it's really nice, and the balance, as I've said, really nice. Of course, you get good ink capacity. They've included the tool, which I do really like because you're going to need it to maintain and clean the pen, so that is a good thing. And just overall, man, that's a pleasant pen to write with. They nailed it again with that medium nib once again. And look at that reverse writing. That actually looks fantastic. It's like an extra fine, really nice. And it was not scratchy. It was a little pencil-y, like a freshly sharpened pencil, which is what you would get at best with reverse writing. So, yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. What do you think, though? Tell me in the comments. I always like to know. And, as always, God bless you, and I hope you have a really great week.